Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ivan Rachiele. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub, we're going to be talking about and really breaking down Ivan Barbashev. And Ivan Barbashev, he has been a member of your Vegas Golden Knights over the past season and a half. And the way we are going to kind of structure this video is that it's not going to be a player profile. It's not going to be where I break down his, junior career, where I break down his minor league career, I break down what he did in St. Louis, what he did in Vegas. What we're going to do on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub is I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be looking at and kind of be discussing what he has done since he landed in Vegas. So the first couple of minutes, I will be giving you kind of the cliff notes of what he did before coming to Vegas. And then the rest of the video will be talking about what he did at the end of last season, and then talking about what he did in this season, which was 2023-2024. And then if we have time towards the end, we are also going to maybe kind of predict what he is going to do moving forward. Now, with Ivan Barbashev and all the stuff that we're going to be talking about, we are doing it here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I will say to everyone watching all around the world, go to the website, www.prconnectionsradio.com. Check out all the content we have on the network. We have about a dozen shows on the platform, including Vegas Hockey Hub. So go to the website, www.prconnectionsradio.com, to check out all the content. They also are on all social media platforms, so go to the YouTube channel at PR Connections or all the social media sites that we upload Vegas Hockey Hub to, and subscribe and like the video as it supports our content and helps out the network. If you can go to our social media platforms, we are also everywhere at Vegas Hockey Hub. So I upload to the YouTube channel. We have a Facebook page, an Instagram, a Twitter, a TikTok. We are everywhere currently at Vegas Hockey Hub. And if you also want to support your host, I'm also on social media as well, right down below at Ian J. Rachiele. I also have to say thanks to the sponsor of PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, paidperletter.com. So go to the website, www.paidperletter.com, and use the _Uncle Dan to get started today. So appreciate paidperletter.com for checking in and helping out the network. It does help. We do appreciate that. Now, with Ivan Barbashev, which was our main topic for tonight's show, and talking about what he has done with the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, the very quick 3-minute kind of update on what happened with Ivan Barbashev heading into this point. Now, this was a guy, second-round pick back in 2014. He was drafted by the St. Louis Blues. He was there for a good amount of years and actually won a Stanley Cup in St. Louis back in 2019. And then he got a little bit of a contract extension. He was there for a good bit amount of time. He was a middle six guy for the St. Louis Blues before coming over to the Vegas Golden Knights. And when it came to Ivan Barbashev, this was a guy, and I'm using Hockey Reference as my statistic here. Ivan Barbashev, he spent 7 seasons playing for the St. Louis Blues, and his best season of his career was in 2021. 2022, he had a 60-point season, and that was the year before getting traded to your Vegas Golden Knights. And Ivan Barbashev, the most goals he has scored in his career is 26, and that happened to be from that 2021-2022 campaign. So, now that we are kind of done with the St. Louis side, we can now officially talk about what Ivan Barbashev and the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, to establish the tone, at the trade deadline, 2023, your Vegas Golden Knights, you're trying to win a championship. You want to bring the Stanley Cup to Vegas. So they pick up the phone, they call the St. Louis Blues, and you have the people on that end of the organization, and they eventually agreed to a deal involving Ivan Barbashev. So the trade would be this. As on February 26, 2023, and I'm using NHL.com as my reference here, the Vegas Golden Knights would acquire Ivan Barbashev, who was a rental at the time, and they would give up a former first-round pick in Zach Dean, and that's what the Vegas Golden Knights would give up. Now, interesting enough, by the way, here's a little bit of a pivot. Zach Dean just made his NHL debut. He has actually been, kind of playing a few games, a cup of coffee, as you will, with the St. Louis Blues organization, but that is not important right now. When it comes to Zach Dean, it's really interesting how he was a former first-round pick. He gets dealt for Ivan Barbashev. Very recently, we saw with Tomas Hertl that they sent off David Edstrom. He was a first-round pick, and they sent him off to the San Jose Sharks for Tomas Hertl. But yeah, let's get back to what we're talking about here. Ivan Barbashev, he plays the remainder of the 2023 season with the Vegas Golden Knights. And in 23 regular season games in 2022-2023, once again provided to you by Hockey Reference, Ivan Barbashev would provide instant, and I mean instant performance for your Vegas Golden Knights. He'd rack up 6 goals and 10 assists on the end of the season. He would have a 16-point performance, which is interesting because he had only about 29 with the St. Louis Blues in the entire calendar year. He goes to Vegas, and in less than 25 games, he has 16 points. So he gels right away with the Vegas Golden Knights. He did a very solid job alongside that middle six situation with your Vegas Golden Knights. But where Ivan Barbashev excelled and where he got his eventual contract is what he did in the postseason. In the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs, Ivan Barbashev, he would be teamed up on line one with Jack Eichel and Jonathan Marchessault. And this first line would be the most impactful line your Vegas Golden Knights would have in the postseason, as Jonathan Marchessault would win the Conn Smythe Trophy. Jack Eichel, he would do phenomenal. And Ivan Barbashev, in his first postseason appearance with your Vegas Golden Knights, would rack up 7 goals and 18 points in 22 playoff games, helping your Vegas Golden Knights win a Stanley Cup. Just stop for a minute and think about that for a minute. Just analyze it. Ivan Barbashev, in the first half of his tenure with the Vegas Golden Knights, he goes from being dealt from the St. Louis Blues at the trade deadline, racking up 16 points in less than 25 regular season games, and then in the postseason, gelling very well with Jonathan Marchessault and Jack Eichel, and scoring 7 goals and 18 points in the postseason for your Vegas Golden Knights. And as Ivan Barbashev is skating around with the Stanley Cup, he's hoisting it over his head. I mean, he is a Stanley Cup champion for the second time in his career. His first one, like I said, 2019 with the St. Louis Blues. Ivan Barbashev would enter the offseason as a free agent. However, the Vegas Golden Knights would lock him up on June 28, 2023, I'm using the news article the Vegas Golden Knights actually put out for this. Ivan Barbashev would sign and welcome back to the Golden Knights organization as he would sign a 5-year, $25 million contract extension with the Vegas Golden Knights. And with Ivan Barbashev, it's really interesting when you talk about the contract that was being put down for him. Now, there is a website that I have used before called capfriendly.com. This is where they show the salary caps in the NHL, and then they have a bunch of sources and a bunch of links and everything like that. That is what I'm using for the contract side of it with Ivan Barbashev. So according to capfriendly.com, he signed that 5-year deal, $25 million, and it came with a modified no-trade clause. It would only be 8 teams that would be on that no-trade list for the first 3 seasons. Then it would be a 5-team no-trade list in year 4 and year 5. Now, despite the $5 million cap hit that he would have throughout those 5 years, and the fact that he had a $4 million signing bonus in the first season that Ivan Barbashev would be on the team. His salary with the Vegas Golden Knights, it's really interesting to talk about because the total salary for Ivan Barbashev, it was technically front-loaded, as it would be $7 million in year one, 5.4 in year two, and then it would be 4.2 for the remainder of his contract. And when you really sit here and see the way the contract was shaped and how Kelly McCrimmon kind of made the contract, Ivan Barbashev being on a modified no-trade clause, and the fact that he got his signing bonus right away out the gate, it's the fact that Ivan Barbashev got the most amount of money on that first year. Now, next year, 2024, 2025, it's way too early to talk about, but we're going to do it anyway. It's Vegas Hockey Hub. 2024, 2025, when you bump down from $7 million to $5.4 million, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there because the cap hit's going to stay the same, but the total salary will go down. And then the remaining 3 years, it bumps down again and it goes to $4.2 million. So Ivan Barbashev signs that 5-year contract on June 28th, 2023. But there was a lot of flack about this. And a lot of Golden Knights fans were not happy with this contract. And I will admit, as a fan, I did have some emotional bias towards it because of what had happened the day prior. As the day prior, on June 27th, 2023, the Vegas Golden Knights would trade away original misfit Riley Smith to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And obviously, I understand sports is a business. You understand it. I understand it. Everyone who's watching understands it. Sports is a business. But the way that contract situation happened, I don't think it necessarily helped Ivan Barbashev in the way the fans treated him with that contract extension. Because what it felt like and what it seemed like is that when it came to Ivan Barbashev, they traded away Riley Smith so they could take his contract and give it to Ivan Barbashev. From an outsider's perspective, that is what it seemed like. From a fan perspective, that is what it felt like. That when it came to Ivan Barbashev, he was signed to that contract, that 5x5 deal, only because Riley Smith was not on the roster. So Ivan Barbashev, he did have some expectations heading into this season because this was going to be a make or break situation. Keep in mind that once again, from an outsider's perspective, fans were looking at him in kind of a negative light because a fan favorite in Riley Smith was dealt away a day before Ivan Barbashev got signed. So how did Ivan Barbashev perform in the 2023-2024 season? Well, the reason why we have about 15 minutes left in the show is because this is not going to be the Cliff Notes version. In fact, this is going to be the breakdown analysis version of 2023-2024. And what your host, Ian Rachiele, is going to do, and I do appreciate NHL.com for giving me this information, is that Ivan Barbashev, I'm essentially going to go month by month by month with Ivan Barbashev. And any notable games or anything that does get on my sticky note here, I will be mentioning throughout this video. So to start this out, on opening night, October 10th, they raise the banner. It's a championship ceremony. And Ivan Barbashev would kick out the season with a banger. As your Vegas Golden Knights, he would actually make a statement with Vegas as he would score his first goal of the season on opening night, and he would start out with a very good situation there. Now, I do have to mention that throughout this entire video, he is mostly going to be on the first line with Jonathan Marchessault and with Jack Eichel. The only time I'm going to mention a lineup change is when there is a player who is either hurt or when they elevate him or delegate him from line 1 to line 2. I just want to put that disclaimer out here. So to start out the season, he is on line 1. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev. That was the line during the playoffs the year before, and they're going to keep that going to start out the season. So, man, that's a fantastic way to start out the year. Ivan Barbashev, first goal of the season. That is a good way to start out. Unfortunately for Ivan Barbashev, that would be the only highlight he would have for the remaining 7 games. As the remaining 7 games for Ivan Barbashev, he would go pointless against the San Jose Sharks, Anaheim Ducks, Dallas Stars, Winnipeg Jets, and Chicago Blackhawks back to back. Just imagine for a minute, you get this brand new contract extension. You're on the top line. Jack Eichel, Jonathan Marchessault, they are your line mates, and they are scoring points. But Ivan Barbashev only had 1 point in the first 7 games of the season. And there was actually an incident that happened where Ivan Barbashev was actually benched in the 3rd period during a game in October. And a lot of people were speculating what happened there. There were people who were wondering if Ivan Barbashev was in trouble. It was an unfortunate thing to talk about. But Ivan Barbashev, in the first month of the season, he was really slow. It felt like he was just in neutral while Jack Eichel and Jonathan Marchessault are in 4th gear, and they're pretty much going all the way down the track. So Ivan Barbashev, you have that slow start to the year, and then the next time you would even score a point would be a goal against the Philadelphia Flyers, and that would be towards the end of October. So at the end of October, Ivan Barbashev would have 2 goals, 2 points, and that would be it with Ivan Barbashev. And no, I'm not counting the penalty minutes, by the way, because we'd be here forever. But for a first-line forward, 2 points in the first month of the season, it was a question mark, and it was a huge question mark that Golden Knights fans had. You know, him getting paid that brand new contract, I mean, what's going on with Ivan Barbashev? Hopefully, he can turn it around. And turn it around, he sort of did in November, as he would have a 2-point performance in Winnipeg, a goal and an assist. I was actually at that game where it happened to begin the month of November. A few games later, he would actually get his 4th goal of the season in a loss against the Anaheim Ducks. And then he would unfortunately go 7 games without a point. And sadly, this was a reoccurring theme with Ivan Barbashev the first 2 months of the year, is that even though he had a 2-point performance against Winnipeg, he scored a goal against Anaheim, he had an assist against Montreal, and then he had a 2-point performance in Vancouver to end the year. Ivan Barbashev, unfortunately, went 10 games in November without registering a point. So it's kind of unfortunate to say, considering what happens later on, but you're still on the first line. You have Jack Eichel, you have Jonathan Marchessault, and they're clicking. The Golden Knights, at this point in the season, they're still being successful. They're racking up victories. This is where the Golden Knights at this point are still kind of running at all cylinders. And for Ivan Barbashev, unfortunately for him, he only has 8 points in the first 2 months of the year. That'd be 5 goals and 3 assists. Now, 8 points in the first 2 months, if he was a middle 6 forward, I don't think a lot of people would have complained. But the problem was, and I was listening to the radio, I was on social media, I was everywhere doing analysis for Vegas Hockey Hub. Ivan Barbashev was getting a lot of heat put on him, because it was very clear and obvious that he was not performing like a first-line forward. It really seemed like he was just not living up to that contract in the first 2 months of the season. It would have to take a very important month for Ivan Barbashev to get back on his feet. In fact, it would have to take a streak of back-to-back-to-back performances for Ivan Barbashev to once again become a top 6 forward in the eyes of the fans? Well, in the month of December, he would end up getting an assist against Washington, would have 2 assists against St. Louis, his former team. He would get an assist against Dallas. He would get a 2-point performance against the Ottawa Senators. And then he would have back-to-back assists against Florida and LA. I want everyone to think about this for a minute. He only had 3 assists in the first 2 months of the year. He would get 7 in December. So in the span of 1 month, he would get up to 10 assists for the Vegas Golden Knights. And just like that, it felt like he was starting to come back. It was really starting to build momentum, and the chemistry on the first line was really racking up with your Vegas Golden Knights. You could tell that Ivan Barbashev was really starting to gel once again with Jack Eichel and with Jonathan Marchessault. But how did he do in the goal column, you might ask? Well, already he had 5 goals on the season. He'd rack up goal number 6 against the Calgary Flames. He'd get goal number 7 against the Buffalo Sabres and goal number 8 against the Ottawa Senators. Now, the best news for Ivan Barbashev is that he went on a streak of a goal in back-to-back-to-back games. In fact, that would probably be one of the best runs he had all year long. Once again, I'm using NHL.com as my reference point. The fact that Ivan Barbashev, by the end of 2023, by the end of the calendar year, Ivan Barbashev would have 9 goals and 10 assists on the season for the Vegas Golden Knights. So, despite that slow start that he had, to be around the halfway point and to have 19 points, 9 of them being goals, it seemed like Ivan Barbashev was really starting to click with your Vegas Golden Knights. Now, how would an injury impact Ivan Barbashev on the first line? As in January against Boston, his line mate Jack Eichel, he would get injured and he would actually be out for around a month. So, a 4th line center by the name of Nick Waugh ended up being promoted to the first line to be with Jonathan Marchessault and to play alongside Ivan Barbashev. I also do have to mention that around this time, he actually did play a few games on line 2. It was only a couple of games, but still, the fact that he went from the first line, second line, he had Nick Waugh, he had to come up there. He did play a few games with, somebody like Michael Amadio. Ivan Barbashev was on a rotating cast of line mates in January. So how fitting would it be that January was arguably one of his best performances, as in the month of January, he went on a 6-game point streak. He would actually have one of the best runs, like I said, all year long. He would get a goal against the Detroit Red Wings. He would have a 3-assist night. That's correct. A 3-assist night at Madison Square Garden at MSG against the New York Rangers. He would have a 2-point performance against the New York Islanders. He'd pick up an assist against the New Jersey Devils, would have a 2-assist night against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then his best performance of the year, he would have a 2-goal performance against the New York Rangers. So in the span of January, where he's playing with Nick Waugh, where he's playing with Jonathan Marchessault, that line ended up becoming a solid month for Ivan Barbashev, as he would have 4 goals and 7 assists for the second month in a row. December was 4 goals and 7 assists. January, 4 goals, 7 assists. And just like that, Ivan Barbashev would have 13 goals and 17 assists at that point in the season. So Ivan Barbashev, you get Jack Eichel back, and in the month of February, you would have a situation where Ivan Barbashev would have a very mediocre February, as he would have an assist against the Arizona Coyotes. He would have an assist against the Carolina Hurricanes. He'd have back-to-back assists against Toronto and Nashville. and he picked up his only goal of the month of February against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Ivan Barbashev only racking up 5 points in the month of February, but I do have to point out there are fewer games being played in February because of the All-Star break and the fact that there actually are more dates taken off in the month of February than any other month. So for Ivan Barbashev, 14 goals and 21 assists by that point. So March has been interesting. March has been interesting because of, simply put, what has happened as of late. Ivan Barbashev started out the month of March by having a 4-game pointless streak. He had picked up 2 assists against Vancouver. He had an assist against the Seattle Kraken. And then he followed it up with another 4-game pointless streak. He would pick up a goal against Columbus and then had no points against the St. Louis Blues. And then he had a goal against the Nashville Predators. So for Ivan Barbashev to have 2 stretches in the month of March with no points, no goals, no assists, nothing. It was very unfortunate really watching this situation with Ivan Barbashev because it seemed like all of the momentum and all of the chemistry that he had built in January, in December, it started to fall off a little bit in February, but then in March, it just became dead. All right, it just kind of dented itself at that point in time. And as of now, in the month of March, 2 goals and 3 assists, right? 2 goals, 3 assists. That's what Ivan Barbashev had in the month of March. So, as we are talking about it right here, right now, this is the stats for Ivan Barbashev. This season, 16 goals, 24 assists, which makes up 40 points on the year. Now, I want to ask everyone watching right now, is 40 points acceptable as a first-line winger? Would you sit here as a fan of the Vegas Golden Knights and say, based off the $5 million cap hit and the $7 million total salary, is 40 points what you're looking for? Because I will say from a defensive standpoint, 42 penalty minutes, he defends his teammates, he knows how to take good penalties for Vegas. Ivan Barbashev has done a really solid job when it comes to getting good penalties. And his plus 14, that is incredible for his plus minus. But I want to know from everybody watching all around the world, 16 goals and 40 points on the season, is that what you would sit here and say that Ivan Barbashev is a first-line forward? Is this statistic right here good enough for a $7 million total salary and a $5 million cap hit? Because when you compare it to Jack Eichel and you compare it to Jonathan Marchessault, he had a much better season. You also had Jack Eichel, who despite getting injured, he has had a much better season. So it really kind of begs the question. You know, his first half of the season with the Vegas Golden Knights, it was a roller coaster with Ivan Barbashev. But his last 2 months has been a slow decline with the Vegas Golden Knights. And you see it right there. Good on defense, average at best on offense. So yeah, good on defense, average at best on offense. So it really kind of makes you question when it comes to Ivan Barbashev. You know, this is year 1 of a 5-year deal. And considering what I said, the cap hit is $5 million for the remaining 4 years. But then he has from $7 million this year, 5.4 next year, then 4.2, 4.2, 4.2. So, you know what? Hopefully Ivan Barbashev, the remaining 4 years of the deal, it can make up for it. But this season, he has kind of been underperforming just a little bit. And considering the cap hit, it kind of makes you question the long-term future. But until then, I will say with Ivan Barbashev, you are a Stanley Cup champion here in Vegas. You helped us win a Stanley Cup in 2023. So I do have to acknowledge you for that. So until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. This is Vegas Hockey Hub. And until next time, continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.